Hi, and welcome everyone to the Let's Talk Relationships show, where we engage in real conversations, discussing love, connection, and all things relationships. I'm Amy Newshore. I'm a relationship coach and counselor, and I work with couples, helping them find their ways back to each other. There's nothing else I'd rather do. It's very enlivening work. I work locally in Greenfield, nationally, and also internationally. And I've created this show along with a column in 2 local papers in Western Mass because I wanted to have people have an opportunity to learn things that they may not have come across. And I love dialogue. That's why we're here today doing this show. And there's a lot that doesn't get talked about around relationships, topics, issues. There's just a lot that people often feel alone with. So I'm here to really highlight certain areas about relationships that don't usually get to be discussed enough. So I'm all about that. And with me today in this episode called Being a Man are 4 wonderful, courageous, and very thoughtful men that have agreed to be here to share their thoughts and experiences and their triumphs, their challenges. Did you know that, everyone? You'll be revealing a bit. And what's better than to hear about what it's like to be a man from men, of course. I can't really contribute to that. So we're going to get started. What I'd like to do is have each of you just share briefly your name and why did you decide to say yes when I asked you, would you join me on this show today to have a conversation about men and masculinity? So why don't we start with you, Tom?
Okay.
I already said your name.
I'm Tom from Montague, and back in 1997, I was dragged kicking and screaming to my first men's group. Didn't want to go, but it was so magical that from that point on, I've had an abiding passion for men's work, and I've run a lot of men's groups since then. And my whole ethos is to provide men with a safe space to express their feelings and not to feel isolated or alone with what they're experiencing. On a more personal note, I met Amy 33 years ago in the dance community, and frankly, she just completely transformed my life. I won't embarrass her too much, but her compassion and her ability to listen and care, it was manna from heaven for somebody who was so type A and closed off at that time. And so now, if Amy asks me to do something, I'm there in a heartbeat.
Thank you, Tom. Wasn't expecting that.
Well,
I'm next. I'm Dan Putnam. I live in Wendell. And I recently have met Amy and worked with her, and she spoke about this, men's Talk About Being a Man program she's created, and it kind of resonated with me because I've always been an advocate with my male friends to support each other and give them a space to, talk to about, hard topics from time to time, and I've always, I recently, wanted to, support that, so here I am.
Thank you. Okay.
Okay, I'm Court Dorsey. I'm also from Wendell, and I said yes because I spent many years, starting in the 70s, I believe, learning how to be what would be called a pro-feminist man. I had a lot of training on how to be more touchy-feely, how to, women could give each other back rubs and, touch each other's feet. So, I spent a number of years learning how to be a good man and how to be a touching man.
I'm Gary Pausner from Sunderland, and I said yes because I feel like there's so many stereotypes out there about what it means to be a man. While it doesn't apply to most of my immediate circle, I do run across, and I certainly see presented images of what it means to be a man that I just do not resonate with. And honestly, I haven't really resonated with most of those for most of my life. And I'm just always happy to talk about this kind of thing. I was introduced to men's work starting in college, and then going to some men's weekends at conference centers and participating in some support groups, and really didn't end up being able to cry easily until maybe 30 years ago. So that was a huge thing, which I'll say more about later. But because, when I was a kid, if I cried, I actually in one case, got punished.
Wow.
For crying. So that's just wrong, and I like to just open the dialogue and let people know, like, there's a lot of different ways to be whoever you are.
You got that right. Thank you, all of you. I'm very grateful you're here, and I'm really excited, and I do want to ask the first question, okay? So in your life, starting in childhood, what do you think some of the messages that you absorbed or you internalized that you either received directly or indirectly through, say, your family and peers, school, the world? What were some of the messages you got about being a boy and being a man?
I'm happy to jump in because I alluded to it right at the end of my introduction.
Yes.
And by the way, I forgot to say, I've got my leg on a chair because I had recent knee surgery and I need to move it around, and I'm not supposed to keep it bent. So, you'll see me moving and occasionally wincing, and that's just the story of my life at the moment. So, that was a key thing. We weren't supposed to cry. We were supposed to be into sports. Which I never have been. Part of my wedding vows is that I vowed that I wasn't going to watch football or or go to football games because I, just wasn't interested. And there were a lot of other more subtle things about how you're supposed to interact with girls when I was a kid and with women, and what men did and what women did in their lives and their roles, modeled through my family and through those around me.
Okay.
So my mother used to say when I was a child to me, she'd say, "Cord, I can't help it. Your father's a little man. He's a little man." Well, she was putting my father down, in case you didn't guess. And she also said, "He's a wop." Well, what she didn't notice was that I was also a little man and half wop. And so I grew up with the stereotype that I was too small. Too small to stand up for myself, too small to, oh my God, if I was dating later and I would stand next to a woman that was an inch taller, it would just literally terrify me. Off the table, a woman that was an inch taller. So, I learned to manage to be cute. And as a cute small man, I got away with a lot. And I guess that's probably the most important message that I got. That a man had to be big and strong and imposing. I managed to be imposing in other ways.
Okay, thank you. And either of you would like to chime in?
Sure, I'll chime in. Definitely keep the emotions in check was a message I got early on. I grew up with 2 older brothers and with my dad in the house too, so it was 3 other, boys ahead of me, always. So always had to keep my emotions in check. Definitely I had to behave. That was a big message. Keep myself under control. Definitely the sports thing as well. Like, I should be in sports and I should be tough. That was the message also I got. High school was definitely being a boy or a man. You couldn't do any feminine type of things, dancing, wearing quote unquote girl colors, things like that. That was basically it for me. Yeah, behave, keep your emotions in check, don't do any feminine things.
I have a quick question for you. So at home, was there one emotion that was okay to have people experience, particularly the boys?
Yeah, we could go into that of not crying or being, tantrums or upset. So I was like the youngest in the family, so I was considered like the baby, of always getting what I want, sort of thing. Or, if I'm upset, then everybody's got to adjust,
I was wondering if anger was a feeling that you were able to expose.
It was more accepted, but it wasn't that much of a big deal if anger happened. It was more of not as a big deal, I guess. If you cried or showed that you were upset in that sense, it had more weight to it than being angry, for sure. But if you got upset and cried and got called out on it, then you would become angry. That's how you got out of it.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Because my father was European Dutch, he was closed off, and I got no messages whatsoever about being a man. My mother, on the other hand, was larger than life and captain of her industry and really a high achiever. So I grew up in a matriarchal household. So I absorbed more feminine energy than anything else. I had no siblings. I had very close male friends, but I also grew up in a very tough part of New York City, and I was always, as they say, tall for my height. I had the opposite of Dorsey's problem, because I was so tall, I was not only picked on by those who wanted to bully the tallest person in elementary school and junior high school, etc. But also I was expected to protect my peers to a certain degree. I had no skills or desire to do that. So that was tough. It wasn't until I got into the workforce at the age of 21 that I really got the message of what it means to be a man, quote unquote, and the box that put me in. And as breadwinner and strong and et cetera, and it was abhorrent, and it remains abhorrent to this day. Those kind of messages. So, but they were part and parcel of growing up.
That's right. Thank you. Okay, I was wondering if there's any particular stereotype about men that really bugs you. That you really just wish would disappear. Anything come up for you?
First thing that comes to me is that we're aggressive. I just don't like to be seen as, aggressive, especially if I am feeling passionate about something or my voice changes. It's seen as being aggressive, and it's frustrating when you're passionate about something, or if you have something really important to say or that's upsetting you and you want to talk about it, being able to express it in a calm, nice voice is very difficult. And it's always about being aggressive, and it just really frustrates me.
Gotcha.
For me, it's been the message of having to be strong and not show my emotions and not show any vulnerability at all, or fear, and that's again a stereotypical framing that I've rebelled against throughout my life.
Right, it doesn't allow you to access your full humanity.
Yes.
At least outwardly, right? Do either of you want to mention that?
the thing about in relationship men only being interested in sex, it just always kind of tipped me off because was I? Yeah. And it was kind of really eye-opening when I was in a relationship first time with a woman who was like openly like enjoyed and wanted sex. I was like, oh, like women actually do. It's not just like that they put up with it or you know that it's okay, but they actually like really like it, and in fact complained about one of my women I was with that the sex wasn't good with her former partner, and so that was just it was kind of mind-blowing actually.
Wow.
Because I just never had that experience, and I was like, okay, so this is okay. It goes both ways.
Equal opportunity situation. Yeah. Okay, thank you. So the next question is a bit probing about your personal life, and those of you who want to share, please do. So what has been one of your biggest personal struggles as a man, and how have you overcome it, if you have, and if not, how are you navigating through that now?
Well, so I can start on this one. Being a little man, I was also insecure. And I didn't realize I was insecure. But I was. And so I did everything I could to be bigger than life. Became an actor, was the king of my school in 5th grade, pretty popular and all that. But the insecurity of being with a woman and wondering if I would always be somehow inadequate, somehow not big enough, somehow not tall enough, somehow not strong enough. And it made me so insecure that I got to be untrusting. I didn't trust women to be, plus my mother had some affairs in her lifetime when I was growing up that I was supposed to keep quiet. So I overreacted, and it was very difficult for me to allow a woman to have full, free expression of herself. A beautiful woman was a terrifying thing for me. I was proud, but I was scared. And I think I became somewhat controlling and possessive as a result of that. And that's been tough. It was through therapy that I came to realize all of this, that I had this Superman created personality. As I began to see that, I was able to relax a lot better. And now I feel like I really like being just who I am. I like being small. I like being somewhat brash. I like being creative. And I'm pretty content to let a woman be who she is. Although I still have to take a good deep breath now and then.
Those are good to take. Thank you, Court.
Okay.
I think the struggle is like the message that I need to be successful and about money, in order to be successful in the eyes of society is that you should have money, and a man should have money and a nice car, and be able to pay for things. And if you don't have those things, you don't have a shot with, getting a quality partner or whatever. So the way I approached it eventually was like, somebody posed the question of like, well, what does success mean? If you're happy, aren't you successful? And that really resonated with me of like, yeah, you know what? If you're happy, what does money matter, really? If you have the things you need, you're eating or whatever, you have transportation, gets you from point A to point B, So that was definitely like something that was, the image of success, what that means. And I eventually dealt with it of just, realizing, that's what society is looking at, or that's what some people think success is that you have money. So it's like, as long as I'm fun to be around, I feel like that's good enough. That's success.
That is a wonderful quality.
My biggest issue has been feeling inadequate as a lover, and that I never could meet women's expectations of me as a sexual partner. I was a serial monogamist, besides a couple of marriages, and I just couldn't feel comfortable. And it wasn't until I met a woman 26 years ago, who's my partner to this day, who I felt understood by and loved by, that those feelings have shifted. But it took a while, and it's all part of insecurities.
Wow, to have men talk about their insecurities is special, and I'm really appreciating your vulnerability and the ease that it seems you're sharing yourself through.
It's you, Amy. We're at ease
Ms.
in your
Vulnerability.
presence.
Yep, bring it out in us, right? Absolutely.
So I'm going to move on to the next question. I was wondering if there's something that you used to do as a kid or that you do now, or maybe something you've always wanted to do that may seem unmanly, and how have you navigated that? How has that been for you? And also, were there things you didn't do, maybe as a kid or an adult, because of that reason, that it's not seen as manly? Really curious to hear about your experiences with this. Actually, I want Dan to start, if that's okay, because
okay.
Dan, I don't know what you feel and think about this, but Dan is a kindergarten teacher, which I think is extraordinarily wonderful. Mm-hmm. That as a child comes into school, the first person at the gate would be Dan, and having a nurturing man with young children is like so important. And yeah, I just want you to say a little bit more.
I would definitely have to say it's breaking the stereotypes of boys are only supposed to play with certain toys and girls play with certain toys. I remember as a child, I wanted a Cabbage Patch Kid. Do you remember those? Mm-hmm. They were huge.
They were
at one
so
time.
ugly.
I mean, I don't know why I wanted one, but I wanted one. But, older brothers, it's like, I can't do that. So I definitely do that as a teacher as well, of like, why can't they play? And the whole colors thing too is, it still pops up, of like, those are girl colors. It's like, colors are just colors, okay? Anybody can wear any color they want, so.
Does that come up in your classes?
Once in a while, for sure, yeah. Definitely with like toys as well, and like kids, boys. I mean, I just let it happen as a teacher for kids, whatever they want to play with. And stereotypically or generally, a lot of boys do like to play with trucks. A lot of girls do like to go into the pretend area. But you definitely need to support kids that want to cross over and get a message of like, oh, I shouldn't be over there, because kids are very intuitive and they read the room and can see the boys are over there and who am I, and where should I like to try to lead by example. I go and play in the dramatic play area, like I'm a full-grown man over there, like I'll play with the dolls, and that's how it, I try to teach in a sense of like early childhood, of just kind of leading by example.
I'm curious if you have found, like in your career, being in a minority as a male kindergarten teacher, if that's...
Yeah, I've come across that a few times over the years of, oh, you're a man and you teach. So I taught preschool for many years, and typically there aren't a lot of guys in early childhood. And I found myself feeling unique in that sense, and I definitely embraced it. And it's also a cultural thing as well. Sometimes culturally, men do not change diapers, or men do not care for young children. So when I worked for Head Start, there was definitely communities and all types of families coming into Head Start and Head Start families. So I would run into that a little bit, and I just was myself, and presented myself as a kind human. That's all I could do, really.
I grew up doing theater and acting as a kid and playing make-believe, so I guess I was often in the dramatic corner. And I remember one time I was up with this rock and roll band that I was hanging out with in New Hampshire, and this guy came in from working out one day, and he had his tools all around, and he said, well, we're going to go out and cut some wood. And I was reading a book, and I was meditating on this wonderful book, and I said, okay, well, have a good time. And he looked at me and he said, what kind of guy are you?
Wow.
And that statement has been a joke with me and all of my women friends since then, that I'm the kind of guy.
Wow. Whew. Gotcha. Okay, let's move on to a pretty hot topic. And I really would love to know your answers. So I work with couples, and many women in the couple, heterosexual couples, talk about how they're longing for more emotional connection. Another term could be emotional intimacy. And they want that from their male partner. And I've been researching brains lately regarding men and women and how they're different. And I'll get into that, I think, in another show, because there's some physiology that's involved with how we approach life, and particularly emotions. So I just want to know your thoughts about that, your experiences with, have you been pressured to show more, reveal more, maybe even have more emotions? Like, what were the maybe complaints that you've been met with, if any, because you guys are, I would say, pretty sensitive and in touch men. You've done a lot of men's work, which is really looking at things that we're talking about today, how we've been impacted by cultural norms and messages. So I'm just curious what you think about the fact that women, I would use that word longing again, because they really feel sad and more disconnected than they want to feel, because they're not getting that emotional connection. So I'm wondering, what does emotional connection mean to you, and what's your experience with women and yourself around emotional connection?
I was pretty fortunate in having grown up, as I say, in a matriarchal home. But my mother, who was very abusive, also had great periods of affection, and she was very open and expressed her feelings easily. So that was really modeled for me. So throughout my life, I've never had a lot of difficulty making emotional connections with women. What I did have problems with was making emotional connections with men, and I always saw men as rivals and competitors, and that was until I started going to men's groups. But be that as it may, for the longing that women may have, I can understand that, because I've met men who have some difficulty there, and I just think it's more nurture than nature, and I'm grateful that I had that kind of upbringing.
I imagine through your groups you've witnessed many men breaking through whatever barriers that they're carrying.
Absolutely.
To be able to access their feelings and reveal them and be supported and actually experience connection more in their lives with other men.
Yes, not only with other men, but they were able to carry it into their intimate relationships with other women or men, or
Very impressive work you've done. Yeah, I'd love to hear from the rest of you about this.
You and I had talked about this over the phone, because I have kind of a sideways take on the whole thing, which echoes a couple of things that you said, Tom. I, in my more adult life, have often hung out and done things with women, and we used to have my son's mom and I used to have a running joke. It was like Gary and the girls, because, you know, going counter dancing or singing, not counter dancing, African dance. And nothing that anybody looked askew about, so it didn't really affect me that way. But it just seemed like I was hanging out with girls. And I know in high school, especially, and probably a little younger, most of my friends were women. I'd say my closest friends were women. And it wasn't that I felt I was in competition with men. I just didn't relate to the stuff that they were talking about. They were talking about sports, or they were talking about girls and dating girls, and I went on 3 dates in my whole high school career because I was really shy. Nobody believes that about me now, but I was incredibly shy. And I just found I could talk with women. And the irony there is that I was also interested in a lot of these women in terms of, like, I'd love to date them, and they were like, no, you're just a friend. Or I don't know if they said the word friend, but I think of you as a friend. And we also alluded to this when we were talking, that and a lot of times these women would end up dating these guys who are like the football players and the whatever, the athletes, or big men on campus kind of thing, and then complain to me that, you know, they weren't getting their emotional needs met. And I'm like,
hello.
Classic.
So that was a real struggle, and it's partly why I think I didn't go on a lot of dates, and really wasn't until I went to college that which was at this kind of wonky, independent, tiny college, very freestyle, I don't know what you want to call it, but where I kind of came out. I was in an encounter group, and remember those, anybody?
Oh, yeah.
And was able to express openly, more directly, some things, and talk to women about some of these things. But even then, it still there was. I remember there was one woman I was actually interested in, and I think were interested in me, and I just didn't know how to handle it, because it just wasn't it just wasn't a conversation I had. So it's this really interesting thing that it's like you say you want it in a lot of cases, and I think a lot of times because of women's upbringing, I can't speak to that personally. They have a similar thing on the flip side.
Gotcha.
So for me, I think this is illustrative of something, both Gary and Tom's answer about being friendly with women. I think men need women in order to get in touch with their own capacity to feel. I'm not saying that enlightened men and men who have, like us, who have been through so many years of reorientation necessarily need that. Although I still do. I cling to my women friends. In fact, I think I want emotional connection more than they do. They're usually kicking me off. It's like my partners are like, you know, okay, I got some work to do now. You know, I got to get back to the computer. What's wrong? Don't you want to talk a little while longer? So, you know, I wonder about that. I know maybe women are looking for a kind of emotional connection that we are not capable of. But I would say that I really value emotional connection, and I bet we all do. I bet most men have a lot more emotional connection with women than they do with other men, unless they've worked hard to train to do otherwise. Maybe it has something to do with biology. I know it's probably unpopular now to talk about men and women as having inborn differences, but I'm probably convinced that we do, and that one of those things is to get close to the heart. We need to cuddle up a little bit to the hearth.
Well said.
I'm pleased to say that I do have a lot of close, emotionally connected male friends now. It took a long time, though.
Right. I think a rich discussion is needed around what is this? Why are we grappling with this issue to begin with? And there is some physiology that I have been tapping into and cultural stuff, but it would be really great to have a really big conversation about this. And what would you like to chime in about?
I think it flip-flopped for me. When I was younger, I had mostly male friends. There wasn't really emotional connection to my male friends when I was younger. I mean, it was about just rough and tumble stuff and not talking about deeper topics or anything with your guy friends, you know. It was just, you know, guy stuff and, you know, being outdoors and things like that. And I remember I had two older brothers, and my dad and my mom, so my mom was my only connection for female connection, and I remember being envious of other guys that had a sister, you know, of like, they got an in, they have the secrets of how to talk to and connect to girls, you know, because I always wanted to connect with girls, but it was like always a mystery to me, of like, and I felt like I was, you know, I didn't have a leg up in that sense, you know, with my other male friends that had a sister or older sister, younger sister. As I got older, though, and started teaching, I definitely work with a lot of women, you know, because teaching is primarily, you know, especially in early education, primarily women. So a lot of my friends now are women, and I definitely enjoy that more than my guy friends. I still have a small group of guy friends that I am safe with, and I can express anything that's on my mind. But it took a long time to cultivate that. And as I got older, I was able to choose, you know, who my friends were. You know, when you're younger, you're in high school or you're college, you're kind of just jammed into different social pockets. You don't really choose. You know, you're put into a dorm room, you know, you hang out with whoever's on your floor type of thing. But yeah, what else can I say about that? It's important to me to have an emotional connection with women for sure, with my partner especially. It's very important to me. And that's all I can say about that, I guess.
I'm going to challenge you all, for one of you hopefully, to maybe give us a definition of what emotional connection means to you. I'd just love to hear it.
Yeah, well, it all comes back to the V word for me, vulnerability.
Okay.
I think that's the cornerstone of my emotional connections, and authenticity and trust. I mean, trust is a huge piece of this, and of course, you know, listening, and not just listening but hearing, and being flexible enough to take into account another person's needs.
And I think also what you're saying is to have that inner freedom to reveal what could be vulnerable feelings,
Right.
especially for men and women too, and everyone else, that it is hard for us to sometimes expose fear, jealousy, even longing,
Right.
sadness. So I think you're talking about freedom to just be more fully who you are in the presence of someone else and be witnessed.
You were my very first woman friend. Before that time, I was working with primarily males in an industry dominated by men at that time, and as I say, I grew up with boys. But oh my God, I can relate to a woman. I mean, and it was platonic, so I didn't have, there was none of that sexual tension. It was a blessed feeling, and from there, I was able to have friendships with other women, and I just felt more comfortable with women until I did my first men's group, and since that time, all of my friends are men now. It's just really interesting that worked out that way.
That's so great to hear. Okay, ready for the next?
Sure.
So I was wondering what you love, and I am saying that word love, about being a man.
I am a trained seal, and you laugh at me. When I make my jokes, you laugh at me. I love that part.
Being fun and
yeah,
humorous?
being fun, being a bit of a clown. I think women like to be entertained a little bit. That's
men?
my belief.
Do men like to be entertained?
Yes. Men like to be entertained too, I guess, but
You
women
particularly
really like it.
Yes.
I think also men tend, well, I won't say men, I'll say for myself, I tend to be somewhat rangy. I think I'm willing to go to the edge on things in ways that that are a little bit more risk-taking in some ways, although what's more risk-taking than childbirth, for God's sake, but that aside. I think that brings a certain kind of breadth and excitement to life, and I think that women that I'm with have been somewhat enriched and enlarged by the fact that that ranginess delivered in a fun and entertaining way can be better than TV.
Oh, I would hope so.
There's nothing I love about being a man at all, but there's everything that I love about being a person. So I don't see myself as a man. I just see myself as a human being, and that's just not something I had to work on. It just happened that way. Being a man, did I really love the fact that at 18 I was drafted to go and fight in Cambodia and Vietnam? No, I don't think so. As a man, did I appreciate always being expected to be the strong person when things were falling apart, and be there for other people when I was just terrified myself? No. Do I appreciate, even to this day, being thought of as somebody who, as a man, because I'm a man, that I can fix something either emotionally or physically, which I can't. No, I don't. I just can't fulfill those expectations. But as a person, there's so much to celebrate. So that's where I'm at with that question.
Hearing that, I'm thinking it must bring a lot of peace to you and others who feel the way you do, to just embrace your own humanity and not have to fit into any particular, what would be the word?
Box.
Yeah, and that's just, I'm so glad to hear that, because I actually haven't ever asked men or any man, what do you love about being a man? So you're really enlightening me at this very moment. Thank you.
And when we talked on the phone, I had an analogous answer. I said, I don't know, I never really thought about it. I just,
right.
I'm me, I do, but yeah, I do stuff I enjoy with people I like doing it with, and I don't really identify it as like, because I'm a man.
Yeah.
The question is kind of new to me. I don't recall ever being asked what I love about being a man, so it's kind of thought-provoking, like, I don't know. But I, too, don't like to be boxed in about the stereotypical man. I love being a man that is dynamic, well-rounded. My mom used to always say, you got to be well-rounded, play an instrument, do a sport, be involved in a club. I embrace everything I can. I go roller skating, like, what? You go, this is a thing? Yes. But I also do like the hero type of feel of being a man when I can be helpful. I'm well-rounded. I split wood, cut wood, I can change a tire, I can change a UV joint on a vehicle, I'm handy. in that sense, but I do, as a man, like to be helpful if somebody is in need, and that doesn't necessarily mean like have to do with being a man. It just means that, you know, I'm a helpful person. You know, it doesn't necessarily have to do with gender, I think. I do like that, you know, classic, you know, hero kind of feeling of like helping somebody out. I like to be helpful.
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
All right.
Yeah.
Great to hear these wonderful words from all of you. So we're getting to the end somewhat, and the next question, I have two more questions. One is for you directly, Tom. So as far as I know, you have been facilitating men's groups for about 3 decades.
That's correct.
And worked with hundreds, maybe thousands of men.
Thousands, yeah.
That's
I mean, I've
so awesome.
facilitated thousands of groups, five groups a week for many, many years. Right.
And you have volunteered,
Oh yeah.
right, to do these groups, and it's been in Western Mass,
It's been
as far
in
as I know.
Western Mass, yeah.
Can you just briefly let us know what kind of groups they have been, and if you're still offering them?
They were drop-in groups, drop-in support groups, and all were open to all men, straight, bi, trans, name it, and but one group, the group that was closest to my heart, was a group for men who were survivors of sexual abuse, and in childhood or adolescence or adulthood or all three, or who were experiencing it at the time. And so what I learned from these groups and what I want to pass on to other men is to provide a safe place to let men see that they're not alone in their feelings. They're just not alone in their struggles. When men would come to this particular group for men who were survivors of sexual abuse, and this group was packed. Men would come from the Boston area, from Vermont and Connecticut, and a new man would come in, and he would just be weighted down with this burden of isolation, thinking he was the only person who had been sexually abused. He had no dialogue with anybody else about this. No, he was too ashamed to talk about it. He thought oftentimes that he was maybe the cause of this sexual abuse, never really understanding the power of his abuser. And when he heard other men talk about having experienced sexual abuse, it was the most moving thing I've ever experienced, to watch this palpable weight of guilt and shame just seemed to just rise above a man's body language change, and his face brighten and his eyes. What my ethos has been is just to give men a chance to see that they're not alone. They're not alone in their struggles. We're all pretty much the same under.
You got it.
Yeah.
And I think what can connect all of us around the globe is kindness.
That's true.
I mean, that's really what occurs to me.
And that was certainly a theme in these groups. People were very kind to one another and respectful.
And you set the tone.
And support. Yeah, I tried.
You did. So my question to you in particular is, what do you think, from all your work with men and really being exposed to so many men's inner worlds, what do you think a particular issue or topic is that men would really benefit from talking with other men about? Because you talked about isolation,
Yes.
the sexual abuse.
Yes.
I think a lot of people, maybe people in our audience, may not realize how prevalent sexual abuse is for men,
I
women,
totally agree.
boys up through adulthood even.
Totally agree.
Right. So is there something that occurs to you as to kind of a theme that maybe came through all those groups?
I think the need to be pigeonholed into a box of masculinity, quote unquote. I think that was the big thing, that men came to these groups feeling they had to be the typical definition of a man, and we disabused them of that, that they could just be who they were. Sure, men were struggling with competitiveness with other men, and with friendship. I mean, the older men were in these groups, the more friendship seemed to be an elusive, male friendship seemed to be an elusive quality. But I would say that just being pigeonholed was a biggie for men.
That's a great answer, because that incorporates everything we've talked about.
Yeah, exactly.
All the challenges that men face. Yeah, thank you for that answer. Okay, guys, we're pretty much at the end, and I wanted to have one last question, which would be, would you be willing to share anything that you want to say to the audience in terms of closing statements, encouraging words? What would you like to say to men, women, non-binary? Just what would your message be in the context of what we've been discussing today?
Just go ahead and be yourself. Take a risk, but be kind. That's all I have to say. Be kind.
Okay, Cord.
Be kind is my guiding motto. I often say to people, 2 words. If everybody were kind to themselves, kind to everybody else, it's really all it would take. One thing relevant to some of the things we've talked about as well is feelings are okay, and crying is okay. So when those young children of whatever gender are crying, it's not about don't cry. It's like, just let them cry. I remember in an article in Mothering Magazine once, somebody was talking about, letting their babies cry in their crib and so forth. And somebody responded to that and said, they're babies. They're crying because they need something. Why don't you give it to them? And as adults, if we're crying, we're having feelings. And let us have the feelings. Let the men, since we're talking about men in your lives, and the baby men, have their feelings. And don't try to shut them up and say, oh, don't cry, it'll be okay. Have at it. Just hold them, listen to them.
Great message.
I resonate with the kindness thing as well, for sure. One thing that my dad used to say always to me, not always, but every now and again, was don't beat yourself up. You always have yourself, so don't go inward on yourself. Take care of yourself, because that's what's most important. As soon as you start beating yourself up, then you're headed in the tough direction. So that's good advice that I, remember and pass on to any human out there. So
I hope through programs like this and in other ways that people can start to see that we share the same commonality, whether we're gay, straight, bi, trans, whether we're conservative or liberal, male or female. We all have insecurities. We all get scared. We all feel joy. The emotions run the gamut, but we pretty much are the same. And if we could just nurture that, I think it in each other and see that, I just think it might begin to bridge the divisiveness that is, especially at this time, just really out of control in this country and in this world. So I'd really, maybe I could be accused of being a Pollyanna here, but I wish that we could recognize that we're pretty much all the same, and just recognize that.
Thank you. So when you were talking about insecurities and that we all have them, I believe that's true. And I've had shame in my past around my insecurities, and I shouldn't be insecure, and what's wrong with me. And I really think now that it is strength to be able to embrace, to know, to nurture, or accept our insecurities and to reveal them. Because when we do, we free up other people to know that they're connected with us, because we're all, like you said, very much the same. And I so appreciate everything that you have all shared. I do want to close with something that I wrote down, just in case I didn't remember all the words I want to say. So I just want to read this. And so I just was wanting to say that this kind of honest conversation is so worthy and vital if we're going to keep growing into our fullest selves. And I want to really cheer everyone on in the audience to keep these conversations going, maybe start them with a friend, maybe an acquaintance, at home, with family, relatives, community. Like, let's just keep talking and listening and sharing our authentic selves. So I just want to thank you very much from the bottom of my heart. Really appreciate you being here, and I think that's it for today.
And thank you for having us.
Thank you.
Conversation.
Yeah.
Awesome. You will be asked back.
Thank you for having the courage and the initiative to provide forums like this.
And speaking of insecurity and courage,
Yes?
how did I do, honey?